Welcome. My name is Lauren Hawker Zafer, and as your podcast host today on Redefining AI, I welcome you warmly to our podcast series in this really exciting episode. Redefining AI is a podcast that's hosted by the Squirrel Academy, and the podcast focuses on key narratives and discussion that drive digital innovation and help people understand artificial intelligence, machine learning, insight engines, and the insight era. As a Gartner-listed visionary, Squirrel is a pivotal player in the field of emergent technology, bringing purpose to all data. In this particular episode on discovering the intersection of corporate and public narratives around AI and machine learning, we've been graced with the presence of a very inspiring female, an AI and machine learning innovation leader, a machine learning influencer, a data scientist, a top data science voice, and a self-proclaimed super nerd, Aishwarya Srinivasan. This is our first appearance as a guest on our podcast, and I'm very much looking forward to our appearance today and to our conversation. Welcome, Aishwarya.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah, it's really great to have you here. I've been looking forward to our conversation. Obviously, you're heavily engaged in the field, so it's great that you've taken the time to be with us.
Thanks a lot. I've heard some of your previous podcasts and they are very insightful. So I'm very excited to be on this one.
Excellent. So we've just introduced you, and I introduced you with obviously a lot of titles, and I sort of pondered on how I should introduce you. I'd love to know, how do you normally introduce yourself, Aishwarya?
That's well. To be honest, like I do identify myself as different personalities, right? I cannot really put one particular job role to identify myself. That's not what I generally like to do. So that's why even through my LinkedIn, the way I try to communicate with the folks there, with my network, is that I'm trying to depict my different personalities. So I am involved in building data science models. So that's where my data science personality comes in. I am equally interested in learning more about, like, how AI is impacting different businesses and how economical it is for different businesses to scale these kind of technology in their organization. So that's where my thought leadership, or my previous role at IBM, where I was an innovation leader, that comes in. At the same time, I'm very curious to create content. So I like to read a lot of things in this space and write about them as well. So I do share the knowledge on the platform, and that's where probably the tag of being an influencer came in. So I do recognize myself as differently at different points in time.
Okay, excellent. And you're also, from what I've read, a member of many advisory boards, associations. You're a long-standing volunteer and a recent co-founder, which is also extremely inspirational. I mean, I think that you're an inspiration to a lot of not only females, but a lot of people that are aspiring to be part of the field in different roles. Um, with all of these engagements and what you've just spoken about at the start, what is it that you're aspiring to achieve, and what drives you to do more for yourself and for others?
So one of the things I would like to like specify is that when I'm trying to engage with different communities, right? I am working with different non-profit organizations, and I do that when I really resonate with their mission and their goals. So I'm working with two non-profit organizations right now, which is AI for Good Foundation and AI Education Project. So what AI for Good Foundation does is they are working towards United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So they are partnering with other organizations and individuals to build machine learning models, or AI solutions, that is helping United Nations accelerate their targets and indicators to achieve their sustainable development goals. So that is one of the things that I'm helping them with. The other thing that I'm involved in is AI education project, and what they aim is how to democratize the educational process around AI. and how can we have this as a part of curriculum, not through like undergraduate education or postgraduate education, but how do we incorporate this right in high school education? And they are having a lot of initiatives around for students in underprivileged communities and developing nations. So that is something which completely resonates, with my experiences, where I come from, and how much importance do I give for education. So that's where I felt, like this is something where I have faced the difficulties, and if at all I can do something to make it an easy process for the other people who might be in my shoes, yeah, nothing better than that.
Excellent. I mean, we're certainly on the same mission there and ensuring that there's enough opportunities for education, especially in the field of AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
You speak about it resonating with you, and that's why you obviously take part in a certain process, or you work with a certain organization, or you provide your experience, your support there. Um,
Hmm.
in this, do you see a necessity to bring in education around AI and machine learning in, for example, high school years?
So I believe that introducing these kind of technology at an early age is really important, because me being a 90s kid, I was not exposed to so many gadgets when I was a kid, because they were merely not there. But as now I see, like kids at a very very early age, at the age of like 4 or 5, they're starting to use phones and iPads. And that's where I definitely believe that technology education, or like awareness about the technology, about how it's working, should definitely be incorporated in curriculum, because it's a basic understanding that they need to know. And why do I emphasize more about the AI side of things? Is because currently I feel, when I'm talking about data privacy, I see a lot of people who are not very aware of how their data is being used, or what kind of models do they interact with every single day. Like whenever people are using their phones, there are so many models that they're interacting with every single day. And it's a basic understanding that everybody should have, especially when they are interacting with so many of these solutions every single day. So that's why I believe that general cognitive awareness about these is a very required thing. And that's where we can like see more and more people contributing towards building a better technology. And especially with respect to building responsible systems, because currently when we are thinking about building AI systems, we only look at it from a technology perspective, and not from a behavioral perspective, or like not from how it impacts the society. So being aware of what exists and how can it be made better is really important, and that's where I feel it should be definitely part of the curriculum for younger generation.
Mhm. That's insightful. I mean, there's so many things that you've said there that I'd like to pick up on a little more as well.
Mhm.
I think the data use, and you've highlighted that people don't necessarily know about the models that they're interacting with, and you've raised a clear opportunity here for people to identify more with that and to have access to identifying more with it. Um,
Mhm.
how do you foresee that happening? Like, how do you think people can be made aware of what we've just spoken about?
So slowly we are like including things in the curriculum. So a few of the things that I can discuss with you is the general awareness, right, of what kind of technology is being used in our day to day lives. For example, whenever we are using Google search, there is a model that's running on the back end, which is helping the users find the best results for their query. So if you and me are searching for the same thing, we are most likely going to get different results. The reason behind this is that we are probably from different regions in the country. We have different kinds of search history in for both of our profiles. We have been, searching for different things. We've been visiting different kinds of pages. So based on our user history and based on our preferences, based on our demographics, etc., the Google search results are subject to change. And these are like very simple things which we are interacting with every single day, and just having the awareness of how they work is really important. So the first part of the curriculum is general awareness on what are the things that we interact with every day, what is the technology that's going behind it. And the second part is, of course, like how do we build it, right? Like the technology aspect of things, on how do we actually build these things. And the third part would be the impact. So this talks about not just like how organizations can benefit out of these technologies, how does it look like in a short term versus a long term basis, but also how does it impact the users. So which users are these technology catering to? How is it going to impact them? How would it impact a different group of users if they get access to this technology, etc. So that's the trust, or like the ethical aspect of things.
Mhm.
So I feel like these are the three components majorly that we can look at. So one is general awareness, the second would be the technology aspect of how to build things, and third and really important thing is the ethical aspect of it.
Mhm. It's really interesting, and obviously, you've highlighted there three different levels that we should be looking at it from: the general awareness, the technology build, how it's built, and the ethical impacts. Now, what I question as well is that obviously here at Squirrel, we focus on the use of AI from an augmentation perspective of it enhancing human capabilities, creating a valuable insights experience for the whole organization. But
Mhm.
you're a data scientist, so what's the main perspective that you look at AI from?
Absolutely. So, one of the things, right, like even within a data scientist persona, there are different sub roles that people are focusing on. So, people who are from the research side of things, they are mostly focusing on how to develop better technology. So, their focus is on how do we increase efficiency, how do we build something which was unheard of before, or like how do we
Mhm.
automate something which has been a challenge for all these years. So for them, technology is definitely the major component. But ethical aspect of it comes in when we are planning to scale it. So whenever we are saying that we are going to operationalize this technology, whenever I'm saying that this model is going to sit in this application and it's going to be used by millions of users, that's where we need to get in the ethical parts of things. Because um, because we need to understand what user group are we targeting. What if a different user group gets access to this application? Would there be a negative impact? How would the impact look like on our user groups right now, let's say like 1 month down the line versus 10 years down the line? How do you think the user groups thinking or their activity change in short term versus long term, etc. And of course, like we need to understand if we are catering to the entire population whom we are targeting, etc. So these are really important when we are planning to productionalize or operationalize these technology.
Excellent, yeah. Yeah, it's understandable. If we continue with maybe moving back to awareness, so one of the reasons that we invited you on today is that you have this really fascinating and interesting role in the field.
Mhm.
You have what I would say is a sort of fanning nature. You embody this intersection of the public and the corporate, and with this I mean that you're heavily involved in both public and corporate narratives and movements around AI, machine learning, and data scientists. You're like an ear, an eye, a hand to both worlds, I would say. How do you consciously experience these narratives, Aishwarya?
I definitely do it very consciously because I want to experience different side of things. Because sometimes what happens is, and this is something which I've experienced firsthand. I have been, I started off as a hands-on data scientist role, and I was only focusing on building the technology, right? Like I was only focusing on, okay, how do I make my model better, or having a very myopic vision. But eventually, I realized that when I am trying to build something for any business, I started thinking about it in a way that why would they need this? Why is AI the only solution that they have? And why should AI even be considered? Is it an economical decision? Is it really going to change the way they are doing their business, or is it going to really optimize something that they're doing in their business? So that's the kind of questions I started getting. And that's when I started exploring the business side of things. And that got me very interested in learning more about how businesses work in the first place. So I'm coming from a computer science background, and I have a master's in data science. So I've mostly been around the technology side of things. So it was interesting to start to learn about how different industries function, how retail sector functions, what are their day-to-day activities, what personas are involved, what business units are involved, etc. Similarly, if you start exploring different business sectors, it's very different, and how we build data science models in each of them varies by a huge margin. So that's something which intrigued me, and I started exploring the business side of things.
Okay. What was um, the main sort of motivation there? Obviously, you said that you found it intriguing and that you wanted to explore the business angle of it more. What can you tell us a little bit more about what drew you into it? Was it your own motivation? I mean, obviously, you come across as being a really motivated and naturally curious person.
So what motivated me is the very thought of how less we are invested in the AI technology. So I had seen how reluctant certain sectors could be around deploying AI in their business, and initially I used to have this thought that okay, like why are they being reluctant in deploying AI solutions in their business? And then soon it did make sense, because from their end the risk appetite could be very less because of various reasons. There could be other challenges which is making them feel that it's not a long term viable solution for them. And that was that inspired my curiosity to see that okay, why is it happening? And that's where I wanted to understand their perspective and how do they look at AI.
Mhm. And obviously, you're involved in a lot of conversations, and I'm looking at it again from the perspective of you're an influencer in the space, you're a voice, a recognized voice. Do you see this reluctance, say, in conversations, in public narratives, when people talk to you or ask you questions or reach out to you? I mean, what's dominating those sort of conversations in the field?
I wouldn't say like I've seen any kind of reluctance. It again depends on which specific industry we are talking about. So if you see, like how AI solutions are being adopted by healthcare sectors, they are definitely going to be more careful. Like it has to be, tested much in a much deeper fashion than anything else, because now we are handling like human lives, right? So that way, like the risk appetite is very different for a healthcare versus maybe say a e-commerce who are just trying to recommend products to their users. So even if they're not recommending the right, say like two or three right products, that doesn't really have a detrimental impact. But if you're not predicting something correctly in a healthcare environment, that can be having really adverse effects.
Mm.
So I do see the reluctance there, where people believe that hey, like I don't want to just like incorporate an AI solution in my organization just for the sake of it, just because it's cool, but I would do it when I feel that it's going to really improve my my things, like my working of things. So that's their perspective, and I completely respect and agree with how organizations think about it. and where, like, how ready they are to actually adopt AI solutions. Because there's also something with AI readiness, which they need to be ready with, and that could be one of the bottlenecks that organizations are facing right now.
Mhm. It's an interesting term that we've used as well, like AI readiness, and I think that it takes us down a curious road of questioning as well. I mean, I am an educator, and I'd say that as part of a team here at Squirrel, we also really try to strive to open doors around educational opportunities to the field of emerging tech. And I think with the whole AI readiness, we often experience that sometimes it's the human or humans that are the limiting factors in both movements. And as you've mentioned, it might be in seeing the business value of AI or encoding semantics on a technical level, or pushing again around the ethical component of maybe the elimination of biases in data sets. How do you personally regard the human and the role of the human in the loop and everything we've been talking about in the whole AI readiness and machine learning, digital transformation movement?
So absolutely, I believe like humans in this entire process are very very necessary, because there's two side of things, right? Like, where I would trust technology is for its speed and its accuracy in doing an automated movement. So any kind of decisions where it's running on automation, I would probably believe trust technology on that. And for the speed, of course, like, like, a human mind can only process information at a certain speed, whereas a computer can do it a million times faster. So that's definitely where I would want to like leverage the power of technology and like what can be done computationally. But where humans come in is their expertise in that domain. So when I'm let's say I am building something for a healthcare sector, right? Like going back to our previous example, let's say I'm building something for a healthcare sector. I alone as a data scientist cannot accomplish this task efficiently, because I do not have knowledge about how doctors treat cancer or how doctors identify cancer. That is a subject matter expertise that they have, which a data scientist might not. And that's where it's very important for data scientists to collaborate with folks in the field and understand how do they run every single day, how do they run their business, or how do they run their organization every single day. And for us to um, understand, like, what do they look out for, and how do they drive things from their end. And that's when we can build a better solution, because unless and until I understand how do they access data, how do they assess data, and how do they interpret the data, I cannot alone build a model that is just automating my things from my end.
Hmm.
So that's where I feel it's very important to have those subject matter experts, and they are really really crucial for building any kind of AI solution that we're looking for.
Mhm. What do you have to be aware of in that process of obviously working close in hand with maybe healthcare specialists, as you've exemplified there?
So one of the things I would definitely like emphasize is whenever we are working, say, on in the data science space, right? It's a common misconception that machine learning is the only solution, or machine learning can solve everything, but that's not true. Data science in general, just the field itself is talking about how do we access the right kind of data, how do we extract the right kind of information from that data, and how can that information be used for making informed decisions. So that's what data science is about, and machine learning is just a tool that's enabling us to make that extraction of information in a much faster or in a much efficient way. So, why I say that we need subject matter experts is because if I'm handling a certain data, I wouldn't know what is right or what is wrong in that data. I wouldn't know what's anomaly in that data.
Mm.
I wouldn't know where data quality issues might arise. I wouldn't know how to treat the data if I see missing values, etc. So when I'm trying to understand the data firsthand, as a data scientist, the technology aspect of things might be more of a stronger suit for me than how the business approaches it, right? So that's where I need to have the subject matter expert who tells me that, hey, like this is how we are collecting the data, this is how we are processing it, this could be some of the data quality issues, and this is how we treat it. So like just the business understanding of that data has to be a collaborative effort between the data scientist and the subject matter expert.
Mm. And there, I think, again, you're really highlighting obviously this polarity in the relationship between the human and the technology. A lot of people say as well that sometimes we might need to address the human before the technology.
Mhm.
And just to explain what I mean by this, it's obvious that, I mean, we look at and we are aware of certain cognitive biases that humans have, but we rarely work on these in a productive manner as humans. You know, we're encouraged more and more to really think about it. And we're encouraged, especially when handling data and building models, that there's this limitation in the inclusion of any biases when handling the data sets, etc.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Do you think that we need to address humans more before actually using technology, as you've said, as a tool?
Absolutely, yes. And we have only had proofs of human biases more and more in the past decade, because whenever we are building technology, we are using data that is representing the society, right? And it would be funny if I say that the society is free of biases, because it's not.
Mm.
We have a lot of biases in the society, a lot of judgment biases, a lot of inherent biases, a lot of unconscious biases, etc., which definitely does reflect back in the data that we are using. So whenever we see, like any data set, right? Like I can just give a very simple example of a database, let's say, that we are using for people working in technology, in the technology field. And we might see that, there are more men in that field working than women. And that's a bias that exists in the society, and that's what is being reflected in the data. Now when we are building models on top of that data, there are very very high chances that the model can also be biased. So a model could be inclining more towards hiring a man compared to a woman. And we have seen such situations, and this is not something which, like I'm just imagining, but this is something which we have seen in models that organizations have built. And we have seen these biases evidently coming out of the solutions that companies have built. And this is where the entire this is where we reflected back that, hey, are we building the right kind of solutions? Are we are we building solutions which are supposed to be, debiasing things that's existing in the society, or are we just amplifying the existing biases and building an automated system on top of it? So these are the thoughts that started coming up for organizations, and that's where we started working with psychologists and people who have majors in social sciences and who understand these kind of biases coming in the data better. And we could collaborate with them on identifying these biases and finding a solution on how we can curb it.
Interesting. And what's the main sort of advice that they're given there, the psychologists and social scientists that you're working with?
So, depending on what kind of use cases we work with, right? Let's say we are working with a hiring data set where we're trying to making hiring decisions for people based on their profiles. Then inherently we try to not use gender, or like a race or ethnicity, etc., as a field when we're training the models. But we also try to see that if there are any features that could be leaking these crucial like variables, etc. And where we do take help of psychologists or like social science experts is for them to help us understand that why is it happening. So they can help us understand that why do we see this uh, shift of, say, like a particular race or like a particular class not being hired as much as the other one in certain roles, etc. So that's where their expertise come in, and they help us understand that, hey, this is the root cause of why this is happening, and what could be a better way that we can train models which tries to succumb what we have seen in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly given a lot of people involved in projects and in the field per se, a lot of food for thought and angles to explore. I think as well, it's about trying to ensure that, as you've mentioned, that we're not amplifying the biases and also trying to ensure that we're moving in a better direction.
Mhm.
And then moving in a better direction as well. I mean, you've got a lot of experience with that yourself as an innovation lead. What are you personally aspiring for the future of AI or machine learning or data science?
So one of the things that I am typically aspiring for is to work more on solutions which are catering to consumers or catering to population users. And what I am aspiring to work more deeply on is how to build responsible AI systems. And it's a very complicated process. I can define it using, like five simple words, but it is absolutely not as simple as we think about it, because users are involved from different countries. Different countries have different governance policies, different laws in place. So that makes it difficult for an international organization to work with the data. Similarly, it becomes a challenge on working with the trade-off on how should companies make the best use of the data that's available to them, and how can they collect more data to build better solutions. So that's the data utility side of things, right? Versus when you're collecting more data, you are somewhere compromising on privacy of the users. So that's the data privacy of things. So that just balancing that data utility and data privacy is a very crucial aspect, and a lot of folks are researching in this field. A lot of solutions have been proposed, a lot of measures have been taken in place, but this is still an area which is work in progress. We recently did have an advancement where a lot of cloud providers um, came in, and they built something called as trusted cloud principles. It is available on the internet. It's available for everybody to like read through, and definitely a good resource if somebody is interested to explore more about the trusted AI side of things, because with cloud computing is a first step that we are making in the space. And yeah, this is definitely something where the industry is focusing on right now.
Yeah, I think in general, as you've mentioned, that there's this opportunity, especially around trust, to create more of a general awareness and the good uh, and the better direction that it's headed. There's so many things that we've covered today, and we've had an opportunity to explore AI for good, about the engagements that you're personally passionate about your perspective from the angle of a data science, also the incorporation of you being at the fanning intersection of public and corporate narratives. And
Mhm.
also, we've heard from you about what you want to achieve in the future around data utility and data privacy. And I want
Yeah.
to thank you for sharing this experience with us, and just want to ask if you maybe want to add something as a parting thought, or any final words that you want to share with us here on the podcast.
as a final thought, I think what I would like to share is, as technology folks, we should definitely think about how we can use our skills to really create an impact, which is outside of business, which could actually, help the community in some way or the other. And trust me, there are a lot of countries, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of communities which need our help. So it is just my just my request that we try to use our skills to make a difference wherever it's possible.
Definitely. I mean, I couldn't agree more there, Aishwarya. Um, Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone else who's listening today. It's been a pleasure. And if you'd like to find out more about the critical capabilities around the Insight Engine, then go to the Squirrel Academy on learn.squirrel.com and access our educational material. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lauren.